I want to give you a Bible passage today and make a very strong application about America, a very current, strong application. But in the Bible, in Proverbs chapter 21 and verse 20, the Bible says, "He that loveth pleasure shall be a poor man." And it goes on and says this, "There is treasure to be desired and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man spendeth it up." Now, every individual, every family unit, every city, every town, every county, every state, and our entire country of America needs to be prudent. I've talked with you many times from this Bible here about finances, but I want to talk with you today about something that our President Joe Biden, has done starting on March the 31st, 2022. He has announced that his administration would release 1 million barrels of oil per day from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve, SPR. It's an emergency stockpile of petroleum. Now, we set that up in 1975. It's very smart. When I was a boy, gas was rationed in America. And if you had a odd number at the end of your tag in the state of Virginia, you got to buy a little bit of gas on odd days. If you had an even number on the end of your tags, on even numbered days of the month, you could buy gas. And it was rationed. You could only buy a certain amount of gas. That was when I was a young man, not quite a teenager. Okay. It was extremely wise to save up all this oil, and just in case there were supply disruptions, because there have been that with embargoes and all that sort of thing from other countries that help supply our needs. Now, until just recently, America had become energy independent. That is no longer the case. And now, for the next 180 days, beginning on March 31st, we are using 1 million barrels of oil out of our strategic reserves. Now, we've got a lot of oil saved up, and I think that's been very, very smart. In fact, there's several different sites that have been set up across the country with huge amounts of oil. That's good. A country needs to have oil reserved. In fact, in the entire world, America has done the best at saving this up. But may I tell you that beginning in 2015, 7 years ago, beginning in 2015, the Congress, I'm not talking about the president now, the United States Congress began selling oil out of the reserves to help fund the American deficit. You see, our budget has not been balanced in years. Now, that's unwise. That's actually, according to the Bible, foolish. Let me read the passage again. "There is treasure to be desired and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man spendeth it up." Think about your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Do we want a debtor nation, a pauper nation? It feels like this has been weaponized against the American people to use these oil reserves in this fashion. It's not an actual emergency. We're using it out of convenience to help defray cost. And look, we all know that the president, on day one of his administration, with an executive order, stopped certain pipelines being completed. Now, I don't think any president, Mr. Trump or Mr. Biden, should have that much power to begin with. For President Trump to be able to have an executive order to open something up and President Biden be able to close it down, that's too much power. At the very bottom, as a citizen of the United States of America, I don't want the federal government to have that much power. We've got over 300 million Americans. Why should any one man, good man or bad man, average man, superior man, there's no man that needs to have that much power. That's my opinion. Because if he makes a mistake, it's all on him. And, we're in this thing together. But I think this is very, very unwise. I think it was brilliant in 1975 that that we started this Strategic Petroleum Reserve, stockpiling this to mitigate disruptions so that American people would not have to ration gas and disrupt all of our society based on that. We can withdraw over 4 million barrels per day in the case of an emergency. And emergencies happen. Families have emergencies. Every family, once a decade on average, you're going to have a financial emergency. That's how life is. You're going to have several of those during the course of your lifetime. And some have more than that. And you need to be prepared for it. The consumption by America back in 2019, we were averaging between 20 and 21 million barrels per day. And so 1 million barrels out of our strategic reserves, that's a lot of oil. That's 4 to 5% of all the oil used. I think this is unwise. I think our country had better quickly move back to this. This book right here on finances and the way to run a family, the way to run a country, a people group, a county, a state. Is there a town willing to have the courage to follow this book right here? Okay, you can be a broke county if you want to. You can be a broke country if you want to. But I'm not in favor of that. Now, I'm a tiny little citizen, but I am not going to let my country go down the tubes without at least vocalizing some dangers that I see. And as a preacher, trying to tell folks what this book says. Now, this needs to change. Perhaps we have the wrong people, not just in president, but the Congress, using this to fund the deficit. Let's get spending under control. We have wasted, that is a verified fact, over and over and over, some of the silliest things that we have spent money on. And the size of these bills going through, no Congress member can read the size of these bills. Affordable Care Act, I tried to read it. While I was trying to read that enormous, impactful bill, while I was reading it, they changed 800 pages. I know when it passed that not one single Congress member had read all of it. It's impossible. Could not have been done, and yet it was passed. That's not being diligent. You see, again, this book teaches you to be diligent and to be thorough. All right. So there's a vacuum of leadership. The vacuum of leadership is in homes across America. 70 to 80% of American homes are not very effectively managed as far as financially and good stewardship, just not. So many know almost nothing about managing finances. All right. It's one thing to be ignorant, and I say that as kind and as sweet as I can. It's one thing to be ignorant, but it's something else to remain ignorant. I've been very, very ignorant to so many things. But friends, I don't want to remain ignorant. One time a man bragged about how ignorant he was, and he just wanted to become more and more ignorant. Well, that's silly. Oh, be prudent, be wise. And so I am sending off a little alarm on what tiny little influence I have, that I think this is unwise, to open up all these strategic petroleum reserves and further reduce. We've already been reducing, and now we're further reducing our stockpile just out of convenience and I think mismanagement. Okay, so I'm going to read one more time from the Bible because the Bible trumps everything I have to say. I'm a little imperfect man, but now God's perfect, and God's Bible is perfect. There is treasure to be desired and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man spendeth it up. Come on, America. Let's get back on track of doing the right thing. May God bless.